Morning, everyone. Morning. Welcome to Royce 25, our biennial conference. It's great to see, well, there's a lot of familiar faces, a lot of new faces. I've already had lots of conversations, so I'm hoping to meet some of the new characters, let's describe you as we move through the next couple of days. Bit of housekeeping. You heard the fire alarm earlier, that's so that you know what it sounds like. Obviously, that was a practice. If it goes off again, it's real, so we do have to leave. So do follow the green signs and assemble in the paved area at the front. And it sort of goes without saying, don't come back into the building unless someone instructs you to, someone official, that is. But I hope there'll be no incidents for the rest of the day. And luckily, the rain will keep you inside anyway. It's great to see so many people here. It really is. I know some people have been held up by trains, and maybe a few more will appear later on. And it might be that we've got so many people because some of the celebrities we've got in the audience, so we've got some real star speakers this morning. But what I'd like to think, with all due respect, is that actually materials is the celebrity here. You know, and that's why you're all coming, because of the importance of materials and material science. These 2 days aren't about Royce. They are very much around materials and the impact that materials is having and will continue to have and will grow in the UK economy. And we'll be hearing a lot more about that. But if you will, just indulge me for 5 to 10 minutes whilst I get a couple of slides about how we've got to where we are today. So if you look back, Royce was established back in 2015, 2016. The government of the day recognised at that point, if you people remember Willits and the 10 great technologies, materials was recognised how important it was then. But I think one of the things that I struggled with when I joined Royce was it was very much sort of talking about that at the bottom, at the technical level. And for real people in government and Parliament, they really struggled to understand, well, what's materials doing for us? So we spent quite a lot of time sort of creating a vision around materials and saying it was around advanced materials for a sustainable society and looking at the compelling issues of the day. So, transition to net zero was the thing when I started. You won't get that without innovation in materials. It just won't happen. And that was one of the messages we were getting across. If you want a healthy nation requires innovation. The basis of innovation, it comes from materials innovation, materials that are compatible with the body or can allow communication pathways in the body. Digital transformation, everyone bangs on about that. Great revolution. Consumes electricity like you won't believe. So unless we tackle lower electronics, lower loss electronics, lower energy electronics, we won't be able to deliver on that. Materials is at the root of that. And then, of course, the circular economy was really, important at that point. So we were stressing how important it was. We started to build that in as an element into materials at that time. So that was the hook. So that's how we worked with government and the different parties and understanding, how important materials was. But the next thing was the hard economics. And nothing gets people's attention more than hard economics. And these were the hard economics. And these are the numbers that you really need to sort of have ingrained in your memory. And I know some of you have seen them before, but you've got to start remembering them, be able to talk about them. So what's important is if you look at materials in the UK, materials unlocks 45 billion of GVA. And it's worth thinking about that. That is a huge number. That dwarfs aerospace, that dwarfs transport, but we don't hear about materials as a sector. But that's how important it is. And that comes from actually about 4.5 billion of people working on very specific materials activity. So the multiplier is obvious there. You get innovation in materials, and you've got a tenfold increase in the value that creates through manufacturing. The job numbers scale at a similar rate. You go from 50 to 650-odd thousand people that are, skilled individuals in that regard. And the thing that's also comes through in spades, and it's not on that diagram, I regret it, 70% of those companies are outside the southeast. 70%. because it drives manufacturing, and we know how important advanced manufacturing is to the UK. So that is compelling. That gets people's attention. Where we've now landed is we've now got a national strategy. This is the first time we've ever had a materials strategy in the UK. And what's been brilliant is it's tied in with the industrial strategy, so the timing has worked really well, so this is actually building together. And the industrial strategy has advanced materials and recognises the importance of materials and materials innovation. And what we've done is keep it simple. We've started to say, well, hold on, what's materials doing in the areas of energy? Where are the opportunities? So this has been industry-led, top-down. So it's really trying to draw through what we're going to do for the UK economy over the next 3, 4, 5 years and have major impact, and this will evolve. There's also some threads, if you look at it, that are tying things together. So there's a sustainability. Maybe we're called resilience now. People think about resilient supply chains. That has become a little bit more of the word of the day with the economic climate and sort of the unrest that's happening around the world. But also there's that digital thread and what that's going to do, and we'll hear a little bit more about that later. Skills, of course, is important, but there's some other things that are coming through that are really key. Regulation and the role of policy and what we can be doing there in the UK. So on the back of that framework, tomorrow we're going to hear a lot more about the science, but I think what we're going to hear later is various elements of this strategy. So Dave Cole here is going to talk to us about how materials interfaces into energy and resilience in energy, how important that is as an area, and touch on that. Andy Bell, who I hope is somewhere here, I haven't seen him yet, is going to talk, there you are, Andy. He's going to actually layer on top of that some of the aspects around defence, which have become incredibly important over the last year, and how there's also the aspects of dual use and how actually that can be a symbiotic, but how important materials is in there, in that space. In the afternoon, Alan Partridge is going to touch on that subject of Materials 4.0, which is to sort of actually unpick it a little bit and say, well, what is it? And how it's going to be able to transform our discipline, actually, as we move forward. And then we're going to hear from Rachel Rothman about the circular economy and resilience and the importance of that. So we're going to draw out those two vertical threads in those two talks. And then towards the end of the day, we're going to look at some of the frontier. We're going to give you a little bit of science, because you need a bit of science. Rachel Riley Green, too many different names, too many R's, is going to talk about bioelectronics and the role of bioelectronics. For me personally, that's probably one of the most exciting areas, how materials are starting to interface and actually interact with the body, not just be sort of, if you like, passengers in that process. And Amy Gandy is going to end up talking about fusion. And if ever there was a challenge for materials, it's fusion. So there's lots of things to talk about there. One of the problems is knowing when to stop in terms of the material development and when to actually deploy that. So lots going on then, but what we're going to do in the morning is focus a little bit more on the regional and the national view. There's a materials thread to this, but we're going to look at a higher level. So Lou Caldwell is going to give us a view, and I think a very important view, about the role of the university, a large university within a large city, and how that can sort of really support and unlock innovation and the opportunities there, and give some examples of what we're doing, which of course can apply in other regions around the country, but Manchester is really leading the way there and working with the local councils as well. Andrew Shooter is going to give us the reverse of that, if you like, a view from the coalface, what it's like to be an SME and how to interface with the initiatives that are happening in the region. And I guess, all the good stuff, maybe a little bit of the trying stuff, the stuff we need to improve on in that regard. But for our first couple of talks, I'm really excited because we've got a couple of people that are sort of more trained, if you like, more into the government aspect. So we've got one of our chief scientific advisors, Judith Sutcliffe, is going to really talk about her involvement with materials and how that's turned its way through tied into the industrial strategy. And before that, we're then going to hear the local view a little bit more. And I'm genuinely excited, Andy. I am. I'm not just saying it. To have Andy Burnham here to kick off this event. I don't think Andy needs any introduction. I'm sort of looking around the audience. I'm hoping everybody's nodding because I haven't got your CV. So, but joking aside, so Andy's passion, his genuine passion in looking at regional growth, in aspects like education, the role of things like transport, how all those pieces fit together, really comes through in spades. From a personal perspective, he's been a really strong supporter of materials, and supporting materials locally as well as helping to bring that out nationally is absolutely incredibly important for us. And I think I'd like to invite you up, Andy, to give your sort of view really on the city, the role of technology, how advanced materials is going to play an important part in the region and city growth in that regard. Andy's going to stay until about 11:15, so we've got a bit of time for questions, if he's happy to take them. But otherwise, the stage is yours. Thanks.
Thank you, David.